Thank you so much. It was funny, earlier on when I was sort of listening to the list of companies and I heard MediaCom, and I realized how I very nearly tripped up some talent there, because there was a period where I had a lot of my daughter's friends staying with me. So after they left uni, they came down and stayed while they were doing internships, or they were, looking around for jobs. And I had a lovely bloke, and I won't mention his name, otherwise you'll know who I'm talking about, who stayed with me. And he was going for an interview with MediaCom, and he was really nervous about this. And on the morning, he got up to go for a run because he felt that would settle himself down. So off he went, and he came back absolutely dripping with sweat. And he went, right, I'm just going to have a shower. And I went, oh, I'm really sorry. Well, there's something wrong with the shower this morning. And he went absolutely pale. He went, oh my God, And I said, look, don't worry, no one's going to notice. You're going to be absolutely fine. Just get dressed. You look great. You look absolutely great. No one will notice. And he said he went all the way to the sort of interview thinking, I mustn't mention the fact I had a shower, I mustn't mention it. And then when he was greeted and you gave him a really warm welcome and settled him down, and the first thing he said was, I haven't had a shower this morning. So you probably know who he is. I've been asked just to talk for a little while about some of my experiences and how I think they might be helpful for you, because I think you're a fantastic industry. There are so many incredible opportunities for people of all ages to be part of what you're doing. And perhaps there are ways of being even more effective with the way that you reach out, so that you reach out to people who might not currently understand the kind of skills that you really need, or they may be really enthusiastic about joining your industries, but perhaps, again, they don't understand the skills that you really need. So there are two groups of people, the ones who've already got the skills, and the ones who have not got the skills because they think you need something else. So just to start at the beginning, for the benefit of people who are under the age of 30, just to give you an idea of my pedigree, I've worked on sort of like tech programs, mostly for the BBC for a ridiculous amount of time, essentially moving from one bonkers hairstyle to another. And it gave me a really extraordinary set of experiences, because it was only when I started work on Tomorrow's World that I ever really understood the breadth of opportunities which were out there, and perhaps most importantly, the diversity of people working in science and technology and the many different routes that they'd chosen to get there. I absolutely did not understand that before I went to work on that programme. Over a period of time, and as you can imagine, because of working on Tomorrow's World, I was asked to go and do lots of sort of speeches talking about why don't we have more girls in engineering? Why isn't there more evidence of diversity in STEM? And it took me a long time to cotton on, but probably about 20 years. And I thought, actually, I am really fed up with talking about all this. I feel like I've got to do something. And so I did something which I thought was just going to be a one-off, and it kind of turned into a bit of an initiative. But the idea behind it was to make visible some of the opportunities which are completely invisible, not only to young people, but to their parents and to their teachers. Because you know that these kind of opportunities are available not only in advertising, but across just about any company and industry you might like to mention. That, I don't believe, is understood in classrooms across the UK. And the other thing I don't think is understood are the qualities that you really need. Because when you're at school or college, you're very focused on, I need to get, 10 GCSEs, and shall I do 4 A-levels, or shall I do 3, or shall I go to college, or what shall I do? You're very focused on qualifications. But, you know from the kind of people who you are employing and working with, that when you arrive in an organisation, what you're really looking for are these things. And what I would really, suggest, when you're reaching out and you're talking about what you do, it is important that, students perhaps do appropriate courses, and there are some which will be better than others, and you'll know what they are. But that you actually remind the students about these kind of qualities, because it can be very reassuring if you are 13, 14, 18, or 21, to understand that if you are the kind of person who thinks differently, if you are the kind of person who, is quite tenacious and will stick at something, that these qualities are the kind of qualities that will get you employed. And so helping to emphasize these things is really important. I've got this. This is the ad that got me my very first job in television. I thought it was completely bogus, and I wrote a very tongue-in-cheek letter because it was obviously pre-email. But there's a phrase in there that made me apply, and it's towards the end, and it's, or would you be willing to learn? You know, I think that's one of the greatest qualities you can have in anyone who works for you. I don't think it appears in ads or recruitment programs anywhere near often enough. That made me respond to the ad, even though I thought it was a bit mad, and it turned out to be Swap Shop, and that was the BBC's first Saturday morning telly programme. And the woman behind it, the woman who was sort of clever enough to place an ad like this to see, well, let's see who responds, was quite amazing, because she said, don't try copying other people in telly. We want you because we like you. You are going to make shed loads of mistakes. We know that, and we will help you, and you will learn. And as long as you're happy to learn, then, you know, this relationship's going to last for a long time. And I named my daughter after that woman, Rose. And it was very sad, actually, because Rose died about 3 months after my own mum died, and I did feel like I'd lost both of my mums. So think about the way that you place ads. This is something, just to give you we all know that the enthusiasm for like science and tech is much stronger in junior schools than is in secondary. At the moment, we're just working with Haringey. We're just doing some detailed work in Haringey. So this is sort of feedback from, first of all, primary school students in terms of their enthusiasm for working in STEM industries. And then this is from secondary students. So you can see that you start to get that drop-off. It's well documented, but I think it's always worth seeing. The other thing which I think you may just be interested to see is this, because we asked them, and this was secondary students, how many companies have you actually stepped inside? How many workplaces have you stepped inside? And as you can see, just a nudge short of 50% had never stepped inside any company at all, ever. So this gives you an idea of the starting point and how hard it is for young people to really understand the kind of work you do, or the work, really, that anybody does. So this is the kind of impression that people have of people who work in the STEM industries. We've done this, and I know that one of the agencies here have just done a really great campaign where they've done something like this, and they've got our students to draw people who work in science and tech. In 2008, we asked 300 students at that first event to do this, and out of 300, 8 drew a woman. Now, and we've felt this is a useful thing just to keep going across all the events that we do now, if we ask that question, sometimes we get up to 50 out of 300. So it shows that there are external influences, but really, you know, things aren't changing perhaps quite as quickly as we might like. So, big question. What are you going to do to make a bright young woman or a bright young person, perhaps from a community, like the one in Hull, one of our very early events, where you often have 3 generations who've been unemployed? What are you going to do that will really help them understand that your industry is for them? Well, one of the things we've just done in Islington is to ask students, what is the most irritating thing that people from industry, if they come in to do an inspiring talk, what is the most irritating thing that they do? We had hundreds of replies, so I won't go through all of them. Very happy to share them all if you want them. But I've just synthesized some of them. We've not got that slide in. It'll come up at the end. That should have been in there. Never mind, my fault. But you'll get an idea of, you know, where often, with the best will in the world, we all go wrong. And with the Digital Skills Task Force, we identified some ways, key ways, that industry could make a difference. And again, I'm not going to go through all of these things now. I can happily share this for you afterwards. But one of the things which is really important is to understand, if you are, for instance, going to go into a school and talk to students, which a lot of people do, have a bit of a plan. Once you've got them excited about what you do, and I'm sure you will, where will they take that excitement? What will they do next? What information are you going to give the teacher so that those students have got somewhere to take that excitement? And it's so much more effective to build up strong relationships with a local school, which is an ongoing relationship, because there's a chance to really make things change if you do something like that. And if you choose a school that perhaps most needs support, then they can become an example of exactly what can be done with the right kind of support. So those ongoing relationships are really important. And I know many of you are school governors, and I would urge anyone who feels that they want to give back to consider that role. Because again, as a school governor, you have a real opportunity to change what is going on in that particular school. You can be so effective in terms of, suggesting that they either work with certain organisations, that they take on projects that might be slightly time-consuming, might happen outside the curriculum. And obviously that you volunteer. And we have a bit of a rule at TeenTech that we never just talk about ourselves. We always share at least 2 other organisations' names who we believe to be good. I'm going to share another one, which is Tech Mums, because I've got Sue Black right in front of me. And that's just because you will find some people like to do certain things. For some people, going into a school and working with a school and doing a presentation is their bag. For others, it might be mentoring, say, one of our TeenTech award teams and working with a team for a certain length of time. For others, they may be keen just to do more to help, mums understand how they can develop digital skills and how they can return to the workplace, perhaps in a new role. And I just feel it's really important to raise awareness of the different things that you can do, because it isn't everybody's bag. Personally, I think standing up in front of a whole load of teenagers who I've never met before is quite a terrifying thing. I'd rather be working with them on a project or something, And I think that it's important, just as I say, for you to identify how you would like to work. This is important to note as well, which are how influential parents are. Because there's no point in working quite hard to, get young people enthusiastic about, advertising and say, you may think the industry is this, but it's not, it's that. If you're not similarly working with parents, because parents will quite quickly go, oh God, you don't want to be doing that, you want to be an accountant or you want to be, X, Y, Z. So think about whenever you're doing work, how will you actually have some kind of influence on the students' parents, or perhaps work directly with parents just to help keep them better informed. And make what you do a practical demonstration, really, of the kind of work you might be doing in your different roles. What I'm saying is, don't just stand there saying, I do this and I do that, and just running through it. What you need to do is not only to talk about yourself, the most important thing are those young people, whether they are university students or whether they are school students. They are, if you like, the main event. How can you help them really feel that they might, number one, be confident enough to work in your industry, number two, have or be able to develop the skills that they need, number three, really enjoy the whole process. So give them a taste of what that might be like, because I don't think that just standing, say, with a laptop and a few handouts at, at a careers fair or recruitment event is really going to cut it. Here we go. These are the kind of comments that young people say that they most they find least helpful when people walk into their schools. And the thing that you'll notice here, it's because people come and they are, with the best will in the world, talking about what they do, this is what happened to me. Think about where those students actually are. What is the starting point? Is there a kid, who, it might be, and it frequently is someone who is slightly naughty or someone who is, perhaps showing that they really enjoy working in a team. Help them understand how that ability to collaborate and work in a team is key to what you do, so that they start to get that confidence. They can feel that, what the kind of qualities they have may suit them for your industry. And I think this thing at the bottom, the fact that so many people try to role model others into being themselves, was a very telling comment. So what difference can you really make by doing all of this stuff? 500 young people came along to the event that we do on the Olympic Park, and we use voting buttons at the beginning and the end of the day. And this is basically around their perceptions about what working in tech might be like. And we can divide it up so we can get a gender breakdown, so that we know, beginning of the day, 29% of the girls said that they were fairly or very interested in a career in tech. End of the day, 78% were. Now, I'm not pretending that this is any kind of a magic bullet. It's just the first step in the process. We've shown them, with support from all of the wonderful people who did all sorts of great activities, people like yourselves, that they might belong in those industries, and they had a taste of what it feels like. They felt good, and perhaps they were surprised by the range of opportunities. And perhaps by seeing industries who they might not have expected to be there. Because if you say the word technology company, really every company is a technology company. But in students' eyes and teachers' eyes, that isn't the case. So for them to see how big the world of technology is, very important. We get some sort of qualitative comments, which I think I'll share. It is quite interesting. When my daughter's now 27, and when she was sort of 16 or 17 in the early days of TeenTech, she was the one who collected these comments, and she just went around the events with a flash mic, and so she just got very candid feedback from the young people about their experiences. The importance of having a plan, some kind of an ongoing thing, so that it's not just a one-off experience. There's a lot of evidence to show that if you provide a one-off experience, for the benefit that will really benefit young people who've already decided they want to do whatever it is you're telling them. That will benefit them. That's another tick. But for the others, they will then need something else. And you'll know this because you work in advertising. I mean, what is that thing where you need to know, is it you hear from 7 different sources before you decide to change? Same thing, especially when you're thinking about careers. And how this can change is extraordinary. I'm showing some of the images from TeenTech, but you could read many other outreach organisations for these pictures. So we place our events in areas of greater social disadvantage so that we're not preaching to the converted. And we provide support when they're doing projects from the get-go, because there are some schools who are amazing at winning competitions. There's no point in just having the schools that always win your competitions. Nothing has been gained. So we work with schools who perhaps haven't had that opportunity, and we do give quite a few wild cards out to the final at the Royal Society, just because we think it can really inspire young people. And it is quite interesting. They share their thinking processes, and just down in the top, at the bottom left there, some boys from Ilford last year, they started off thinking, I think their first idea was for a new kind of laser weapon. Second idea was for a pair of boots that would enable them not to bother about pedestrian crossings because they could just jump over all of the traffic. Third idea was for an intergalactic hotel. And the fourth one was for a condom that changed colour according to the sexually transmitted disease that it came into contact with. And no prizes for guessing which project they then decided to pursue, but there was something about the real spirit in which they had entered all of this. And the thing that really creased me up was they had gone out and they'd done some sort of surveys with the public. They went into Westfield and they collared people and they recorded it on their mobile phones. So this was verbatim. It was like, right, so sir, we've just done a school project and we're just wondering whether you could give us some feedback. Oh, well, I've not got much time, but I'll do my best. Okay, well, it's a condom that changes colour. And then people going, oh, I wasn't expecting you to say that. Seems like a good idea to me. And I say they had a wild card, but by the time they arrived at the Royal Society, what they didn't know about sexually transmitted diseases was not worth knowing. And to my surprise, if I'm absolutely honest, because I'd seen the original project, but goodness me, had it changed by the time they arrived there. They won the health category. And I know it's an unfortunate word to use, but that did go viral. It was carried by news organisations all over the world, and they're now in discussions with 2 condom companies. So that was obviously, you can imagine that's a big deal for the kids. But this thing about scale is quite interesting. The effect on that school was extraordinary. And when I spoke to the teacher, because I was a little bit concerned that with how the 3 boys were kind of managing the level of press attention they received. And she said, oh, no, it's been fine. And in terms of the school, she said, when we kicked off with this, we had, I think it was 10 kids in the STEM group. Now the whole school want to be in it. So that was the real achievement, was helping all of those school students really understand, number one, where a good idea might take you, and number 2, how the process might be, rather, more enjoyable than you might imagine. And I'm going to finish up in terms of impact, and as I say, just about understanding this whole thing about scale with what happened to this particular school in Wales. They won't mind me sharing, because it's been in the press, that they were a school who were right down at the bottom in terms of what they were achieving and how they were being measured by the Welsh Government. They came along to our events as a school for a couple of years, and then the teacher thought, oh, we'll have a go. We'll try the TeenTech Awards. So she showed the video to the students, and she said that when they watched it, the feedback from the kids was, oh, we could never do anything like that. And she said, shame on me, because I didn't think they could either, but I encouraged them to have a go. So we put them in touch with Airbus, who were local to them. We also put them in touch with a local college who went in and helped the students with the electronics behind the project. The local college, incidentally, said this was an absolute win-win for everybody concerned. And they got through to the final. For one of the boys, it was the first time he'd ever come into England and crossed the bridge, so that was very sort of exciting. And they won the category. The teacher has just been incredibly generous, because obviously the teacher has done all of this. We've merely provided the moment, the catalyst, for this to start. So she invited all the community to come into the school to celebrate the boys' achievements. And 3 weeks ago, whenever the Big Bang Fair was, the boys took that same project there, and they won. And one of the boys, the boy who'd never been into England before he came through to the Royal Society, he is now going to America because he's been selected as one of the 3 young engineers of the year. That school now has been chosen by the Welsh Government as a beacon school. It is just extraordinary, and that's the kind of difference you can make. And so that's what I mean, with scale. I think it's so easy sometimes to confuse must reach millions. But if you do whatever you do, and there's a lot of people in this room, if you do whatever you do in the right way, in a thoughtful way, in an ongoing way, you really can make a big difference. And I'll leave you on that thought and say, I think this is the most amazing industry. I wish you all the very, very best. Thank you.